Gaming finally dances into the meta, and today I'll tell you how to build him best. Let's get into it. So what are Gaming's best artifacts? Well, 4-piece Mayonnaise Hunter is the obvious choice. Gaming works excellently with this set as his kit features HP loss mechanics, not to mention his synergy with Lady Farina, his obvious best in slot choice. Yet 4-piece Crimson Witch is another solid contender. Not a bad choice. Lots of pyro damage percent for Gaming, his second best in slot choice. Otherwise, 4-piece Vermilion takes the stage. Attack percent for days. It'll be the weakest of Gaming's 4 sets, since Pyro Rez and Bennett will have attack covered for him, but it is a formidable choice for those wondering. Mix and match sets include 2-piece Pyro percent, attack percent, and EM. As for main stats, simple. Either EM, damage percent, crit percent, or attack percent, damage percent, crit percent. It's the way to go. Aim for 2k attack at least. On a non-crit weapon, you want a 1-to-2 ratio of 70 to 140 crit rate and damage. 70 plus to 200 plus on a crit weapon. His substats look a little something like this. It's good to make sure your Gaming has enough ER to burst regularly. All his artifact choices work fine. Choose whatever has the best stats. Let's dive into Epic Gamer Gaming's best weapons. R1 Beacon of the Reed Sea will be Gaming's finest choice. One of the best claymores and a fantastic crit stick too. Would recommend. R1 Red Horn is another solid pick. You mainly care about this choice for its massive crit offering. The passive doesn't mean much to Gaming. Still a great choice on him. BP choice R5 Serpent Spine is also highly formidable. Plenty of damage to find here, only issue is having to wait for stacks to build up before beginning a chamber. But if that doesn't matter to you, then this is one powerful choice. R5 Rain Slasher is another viable pick. Wonderful for pulling off high vaporized numbers with Gaming. Finally, a great use for this weapon. If you are around for it, R5 Mailed Flower is another amazing Gaming choice. You'll be absolutely gaming with the free EM this provides you. No? Okay. You can also work with Talking Stick. This isn't one of his stronger choices, but it will suffice. Some other weaker options include the Unforged, Wolf's Gravestone, Tidal Shadow, and Blackcliff. If you can, buy Battle Pass and get him a Serpent Spine. His free-to-play friendly options are not that hot. Otherwise, your Pain Slasher finally has a place it belongs. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, why not consider liking and subscribing? Maybe even leaving a cool comment down below. If you do, Gaming will help you win every victory royale. What a true god gamer. Now, who exactly works with Gaming? Gaming's got one main team core. It consists of Gaming, Bennett, Farina, and a flex. There's 3 main flexes that work with Gaming. Xianyun will be his best. She offers Gaming a huge boost to his plunge damage against single enemies. She can hold 4 VV to swirl Pyro for him as well, and offer a mild crit rate buff with her A1. If getting the swirl was too hard, then Song of Days Past is also great on Xianyun here. She can buff this team for means of her signature too. Her only main flaw is needing a bunch of ER. Also, she's a great healer for both Gaming and Farina. Definitely Gaming's ideal team choice. Yet if you're playing Gaming in AoE, then Kazuha is your next best bet. He's a tried and true option, damage bonus percent for Gaming and amazing grouping for the team. He can also hold 4 VV for the comp. Great choice. Lastly will be Zhongli. I would recommend him if you're playing Serpent Spine on Gaming. You won't be able to lose any stacks, a comfortable choice for him. It'll prevent him from getting knocked over as well. Being able to forward 4-piece Tenacity of the Millilith is another cool buff Zhongli can provide. As for Gaming's other teammates, they're fixed. Bennett provides Gaming plenty of attack and heals. Pyro Rez as well. Only downside is having to play Circle Impact. There is also a special technique if you choose to C6 your Bennett for this team, which I highly recommend. If you're playing Xianyun with Gaming, while your Gaming skill is on cooldown, you can use Bennett C6 to keep Pyro Infusion. Then you can use Xianyun's Plunge Enabling to continue Pyro Plunging with Gaming until your skill's cooldown ends. And if you're not playing Xianyun with Gaming, then Bennett can heal him from all the HP drain that Farina causes. Speaking of gorgeous Lady Farina, she will be Gaming's ideal Hydro choice for vaping. Lots of damage bonus percent, which is excellent. Since Bennett and Pyro Rez gives Gaming so much attack, the damage bonus is even more appreciated. Farina also has an extremely long uptime, which is wonderfully appreciated, allowing for more Pyro-infused normal attack plunges, for example. Xingqiu and Yawan are more awkward to apply with plunge units. You have to weave normals in between plunges to proc their applications. Farina's free guys apply Hydro and deal sub DPS even while Gaming is in the air, so Gaming will easily be able to vape every hit with Farina. So that covers Gaming's teams, but how does he work? Let's cover Gaming's talents. His normals deal 4 regular physical strikes, nothing much to see here. As for his skill, Gaming will leap forward and jump high into the air. His plunges will now get buffed. The plunges he deals will also now deal pyro damage. Every time Gaming does a plunge, he'll eat up some of his HP. He can't go below 10% HP from plunging, so that answers the mighty "can he die from his abilities?" question. Now for Gaming's burst. Gaming applies pyro on himself and heals a chunk of his HP. He will then summon a little guy who smashes into his targets, dealing AoE pyro damage. After the little guy bashes into an enemy, it will return to Gaming. Once it returns to Gaming, his elemental skill cooldown is reset. When Gaming uses his skill during his burst with more than 50% HP, he will summon the little guy again. If you're playing co-op, only one little guy can exist at a time. All his burst buffs disappear once you've swapped off Gaming. Cool, now what about the Ascension passives? Gaming's A1 has pretty nice synergy with his kit. Every time he does a plunge during his skill, Gaming regains 1.5% of his max HP once every 0.2 seconds. This lasts for 0.8 seconds, so some solid self-healing built into his kit. As for his A4, when Gaming has less than 50% of his HP, his incoming healing bonus increases by 20%. But if he has more than 50% HP, then his skill plunges will deal 20% more damage. That's right, not 20% damage bonus, he will straight up deal 20% more damage. Grade A4, a huge incentive to keep him relatively healthy. Sadly, while his exploration passive looks cool, no need for it really, it doesn't work in Abyss, but cool if you're into exploration. As for Gaming's talent priorities, simple. Definitely level his skill first. The damage that comes from his skill plunges scales specifically off of his skill. It's not like Xiao or the normals benefit off the burst. Think about Ayato's skill, for example. His burst is also quite vital, so make sure it's level 2. As for his normals, 2 options. If you have C6 Bennett, which I highly recommend activating if you haven't already, level them. They won't be your first priority, but will allow your Gaming to get extra pyro-infused plunges in. If you refuse to C6 your Bennett, then ignore his normal attacks. Now let's have a look at Gaming's combos. Gaming's personal rotation is extremely simple. You pop his burst, skill, then plunge into Oblivion. You can keep this up until Gaming's plunge duration is worn out. And if you're using a C6 Bennett, you can get some extra damage in. You can deal pyro-infused NA plunges with Gaming until his skill cooldown resets, and you can begin the whole combo again. So a pretty straightforward character to play. Great, but what if you want to take your Gaming to the next level? Let's take a look at Gaming's cons. Are they necessary? When Gaming's little guy returns to him, the guy heals 15% of his HP. A fine con, especially when you really want Gaming to be over 50% of his HP. But you have Gaming's own healing, Bennett's healing, and also possibly Xianyon's healing. So this con is nice, albeit a little redundant, just some nice quality of life. When Gaming gets healed despite already being at full HP, he gains a 20% attack boost for 5 seconds. This not only raises the value of his C1, but makes overhealing less of a penalty in his teams. Solid con. A +3 increase to his skill, a much appreciated increase. When Gaming hits an enemy with a skill plunge, he regains 2 energy once every 0.2 seconds. Not a bad C4. Lowers his ER requirements by a decent bit. A decent con, I would say. A +3 increase to Gaming's burst. Once again, another fairly appreciated increase. And now for Gaming C6. This turns Gaming from a pretty solid DPS to a true beast. His skill plunges will have an extra 20% crit rate and 40% crit damage slapped onto them. Not only that, but his skill plunges get a wider AoE. Fantastic C6. If you ask me, Gaming's cons from C1 to 5 make him comfier to play. Not needed, but lovely to have. C6 though, absolutely a force to reckon with. It's gaming time, fellas. Of course, Gaming is still a perfectly fine unit at C0, capable of clearing. He will be strong, but it's undeniable how much better he becomes at C6. Well, Gaming is an insane 4-star pyro DPS unit. It's easily the strongest 4-star hypercarry we've gotten so far. It's not even close. It's wonderful to see the Hoyoverse is finally stepping up their game with their 4-star units. Gaming is a DPS that can please all. I absolutely recommend giving him a try. Yes, his teams are a little expensive, but if you have the right tools, Gaming is completely worth a shot. Hopefully this gaming guide, had to say it at least once, was able to get your Gaming crushing enemies. Well then, this has been Juice, signing out. And I wish you all a day that just jumps with joy. I'll see myself out.